Hi, I'm Shoulder Bones, and I want to talk today about the fascinating topic of curses and hexes. And curses and hexes is so associated with witchcraft, especially with lay people. And I'm sure, as any of you would have experienced, if you're into witchcraft, that one of the first questions you ever get asked is, "Ooh, can you do a hearse? Can you do a curse, or are you going to hex me?" And isn't it annoying? So annoying to be constantly associated with, what's had such bad press to do with witches. So I want to just have a brief discussion today about that, because I think there's a few camps in witchcraft that possibly don't help the public's opinion of us. I mean, the major contender we have generally to be taken seriously, I think, against us is Hollywood, because Hollywood just love to make a muck on displaying us as these angry curse-wielding maniacs in horror movies, and that doesn't help. But anyway, I've never seen a witch as a superhero. But the curses and hexes, I mean, of course, I believe that you should be trained. When you're trained, I think, in witchcraft, you really need to be aware of all aspects of it. I think it's like any profession whatsoever. You need to know it well, inside and out, and it needs to cover all domains. And I think for me that, one, you need to look after yourself. You need to hold your own. You need to know all aspects of what it is that you're trying to master yourself in, and most of it's self-rule, but you also are in a domain where you need to hold your own, and you need to understand where things come from. And like all parts of nature, I mean, if you were into sports, you need to know the rules of the game, and you also need to be briefed on all aspects of that and how to train yourself up and be the fittest that you can be, or the most resilient or robust. Now, curses and hexes, of course they're part of witchcraft. Of course they're under the domain of our skill base. One of the main things that has been highlighted to me in the West is practitioners that have contacted me that actually aren't aware so much on how to hold their own with curses and hexes. And I guess that has surprised me, because there are schools of witchcraft which don't believe in teaching students how to hex or curse. Now, I probably won't be popular for saying this, and I don't really care, because actually, as I've said in my other videos, this is an eclectic path working. We make it up as we go along. A witch in her own right, not associated with a creed or a coven like I am. I'm on my own thing, I'm on my own buzz here, so I can say whatever I like, and if as long as it pertains to my truth, that's okay in witchcraft. We don't speak for others, we don't speak for other bodies. What I have found amazing is witch schools not teaching their students how to hex and curse. Now, the reason I think this is important isn't about them actually being able to wield a curse or a hex, it's about knowing how. It's so important. As a witch, you're often called into a situation where you must act as a mediator or / healer. The amount of times I have been asked to step in a situation where a person has perceived they have been cursed or hexed or black magic has been involved. More times I've been asked to step in there, or healers have rung me to ask me to go and act as a mediator in situations perceived as cursing. I've had more of that than I've ever had people petition me wanting a blessing or help with a naming ceremony or a hand fasting. Trust me, they always call the witch when they don't know what to do with one of their clients, or if the client has perceived a curse. There's all this hands-off approach from a lot of New Age communities around healing, and they will call a witch. They will. It happens. You must know this. If you call yourself a witch, you start fielding all these calls. about this really bizarre topic that no one seems to be briefed in very well. Now, the thing is with curses and hexes is that the reason I think it's so important to actually teach your students about the different ways that curses and hexes can be laid into an energy field, can be pierced into an energy field, and whether they're from God forms, plant spirits, whether it's a thought form, all these things, there's many ways to curse. You may be in a position where you need to diagnose somebody. That's why I think it's important that we don't lose our heritage on actually the ability to curse. That's why, because how can you help someone who believes they've been cursed if you can't actually journey through their energy field and find the cause? Curses and hexes, usually in the West, in my experience, are quite simple. They're not that complicated to unravel. Some of the ones that are coming from other cultures that are indigenous that you may not stumble across as easily, or you may only be exposed to it once in your whole sort of witch life career, may take a little more time to unravel. So I would say the more training that you can have, use it as diagnosis, turn it around, use it as your ability to have in your toolkit as another thing that you may be called for to help the community with. And it's not about doing it, it's about actually in your own awareness knowing exactly how the source has, come to pass, what's the counter magic for it, how can you explain to the client or the person that's upset about, in the nicest possible way, how you're going to work to resolve this. And of course, always with the positive approach that it can be dealt with, that you're dealing with it, that there's going to be no reoccurrence, that, you've put this protection field in this way, and you want them to think about this protection in this way so that they're more robust and it's not going to be a repeat. And that there are lots of ways that people can perceive being cursed and hexed, as you be aware. But I think the worst thing we can do as modern day witches is pretend that we're so pure and white that no one's cursing anyone if you're a witch, or I don't curse, or I don't hex, and all this stuff. I mean, for goodness sakes, just, for me, it's just like, that doesn't even come into it. People need to understand that as magical practitioners, any of the powers we can tap can be used, to bring harm or to bring healing, because that's the life that we live in. We have this abundance of energy, and depending on your magical focus, your magical intent is actually how that can roll out. And as witches, it's about self-rule, and it's about holding your own and having clear magical focus so things don't spill out in the wrong direction. If you were going to work with other people and you're going to work in the community with others, in my experience, most of the calls I field, most of the assistance of help, and most of the emails from people wanting to ask my advice or my assistance is always around being cursed or hexed. They believe they have been, and you need to be very clear. Is it that they actually are negatively creating an emotional field around themselves where you perceive in their energy that there is actually no latent curses? There's not, an ancestral line of cursing that's coming down from somebody back in their family tree. Can you move through the tree for them and find if there's something unresolved? That's one type. Then there's other types about, have they been exposed to something unwillingly where somebody has drawn energy off them, and then they are now perceiving like a vacuum? That's another type. Has somebody actually used a curse, a simple curse, in order to get an effect? Maybe they wanted them, to get out of the way in line of a job that they wanted. Simple stuff like that. That can be done, by the way. I've come across this. This can be done by lay people that don't even know that they're doing it. This can be done out of sheer willpower. And willpower in some people that have got a lot of pent-up energy can be really strong. And basically what modern day shamans or witches would call that actually is a concerted effort of will can manifest as a thought form. So it could be a thought form impressed on somebody else. And then, so these are all the things you see. There's all these things that can be actually managed, but you can't also add paranoia to somebody. You must really be skilled in actually knowing how to manage the situation. And it can be just reassurance. It can actually be getting someone to turn their thoughts around so that they don't perceive themselves as victimized by this perceived insult coming from externally. It may just be that they're incredibly, emotionally negative in a downward spiral about something, and this is the easiest way that they can see that has evidenced why this is happening to them. It could just be a lack of personal responsibility, and you need to kind of like coach them out of that and get them to focus on stuff that's actually more empowering for them. And that's a big piece of work. I mean, that's not, like a 15-minute phone call, because then they could feel defeatist and that you're not really helping them. And so, you need to coach that situation. And the other situations is, I have had to, in some circumstances, approach gods that have been called in because a god may have been a patron to somebody and lent its energy because that person could channel that energy. And that's a bit more tricky. And you can't actually manage curses and actually be of much assistance, I don't think. When a healer calls you and they say they've got someone on their table, you can't really walk in there blind. I mean, just don't go. Say that you don't know anything about curses and hexes, but for some reason you call yourself a witch. I don't know. That's probably a bit harsh, but that's kind of what I think. If we're going to use the word witch and name ourselves that, then I think we need to be quite grounded and sound in all domains of our practice, and we must be able to diagnose. I'm not sure if you could love somebody out of a curse. If you could I don't know how it works. I don't know unless you can diagnose the cause, if there's a counterbalancing energy of magic, and how you're going to coach the client out of this. What you can't do is actually remove a curse or help to coach a curse out, or a plant spirit, or a barb, or a dart, and then kind of dispel it, like put it somewhere, or get your own forces or spirit team to help you deal with it. I don't think you can remove it and then kind of leave the client thinking that, something bad's come out of me, and then they walk around with this psychological profile that bad stuff can happen to them, that they've got this kind of like leaky raincoat and bad stuff can just flood them. There is a piece of work there. You need to make sure that people feel as robust as they can, and they need to go away and continue self-talk that's positive, so that they're not reinventing or recreating patterns that believe that they're victimized by other people's ill thought towards them. So I mean, that's just a brief discussion on curses and hexes, but I think we're not helping lay people, and we're not helping ourselves if we go around saying that actually that we don't believe in cursing and hexing. How can that be helpful? I just don't make the connection myself, because I think actually it's like a surgeon saying, well, I'm sorry, but I just don't deal with broken legs, I just deal with the upper body, that's me. And you just think, well, isn't that your domain though? We don't go to a Reiki healer because we curse. We don't call a naturopath or an osteopath because someone believes that that some black shadow's walking around behind them that's been sent because they upset someone in a community somewhere. I mean, you don't ring an osteopath for that, do you? They will always call the witch. Always call the witch. And I just think that if we're going to, be brought more into the modern world where people start understanding our skill base, then we have to kind of own that we do know how to curse and we do know how to hex. We know how to do that. We know how to diagnose, and we often know how to unpick a curse and unpick a hex, and we can offer the healing and the psychology that's required for a client to walk away from that feeling not only cured but strong and robust, and also knowing how to hold their own a bit better. Yeah? And that's what I think is really important, and that's what I just wanted to talk about today. Thanks.